welcome back to Wook+. I am Weekend Wook, joined by Kev the Great Went, T, New York Times best-selling author Benjy Eisen, and the one and only Mr. Biz Archive Scott Marks. What's up, guys? Benjy, I was telling Kev the other day that it's my favorite introduction, and I only want to ever introduce you to people from now on as New York Times best-selling author Benjy Eisen. I think that's a badass intro.
That is awesome.
I have some friends that will do that even for like waiters. It's embarrassing.
You need it on like a business card.
But it's good to see all of you guys. I mean, I just saw T Strong down at the Troubadour just off the Sunset Strip. But for the rest of you guys, it's good to see you guys.
How was Taper's Choice? Did you have a good time?
I had a fantastic time. I mean, T can tell you all about it, but it was those Hollywood nights. You know, there's something about not just the band. The band could have played an average show, which they didn't. They played a great show. They could have played an average show, and I still would have had the most incredible time because it's the Troubadour. I mean, Guns N' Roses recording, Live Like a Suicide there. Elton John, Billy Joel, Lenny Bruce, all like those were. I mean, the Troubadour was like a benchmark in all.
Elton John, Billy Joel, Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, that's right.
Choice.
And the Doors, obviously. The Doors were discovered a few blocks away at the Whiskey A Go-Go, but the Troubadour was definitely their first big stronghold. Poison, Motley Crue, all of those guys, all the ones that matter. The Mount Rushmores.
It's like it was such a great night in that like we paid to be able to film, so like I got to film legally and from anywhere. So then they gave me like an all access pass, which was fantastic. So like for like a dream for me, because I'm not a musician or like would ever think I'd get to see like the green room at the Troubadour, but like I got to hang out in the green room with the guys and like be back everywhere. And I was like, you don't understand how awesome and filming it all. And I was like, this is so awesomely cool. Like, and then CT was explaining to me, yeah, like they redid the dressing rooms a while ago, and so it's not exactly the same as it used to be, but it's still got like that same. I mean, it's still a fucking Troubadour.
Wait, did you do that for
it does, but those dressing rooms are always so disappointing. I mean, they're like great in terms of the history, but then you look around and you're like, if there's no history, this would be like a shitty room for them to give me to get ready to play a show.
It's already exactly. There's like a couch, and that's pretty much it. And then like their own water, and you're like, all right, sweep with the shower, and like, yeah, it's funny.
A couch you don't want to touch, really. I mean,
exactly. Like, yeah, exactly. But yeah,
I've been on that couch, and I don't think the record will ever forget it. So yeah.
I'm gonna pull this back in though, because we got a huge night tonight. I don't know if you guys realized, but PHiSH just burned down the West Coast. Oh, that's a bad pun. They played really, really well out there. So we have a bunch of great shows to cover. Actually, a few of us were talking about it though. I wanted to touch real quick though before we get into the tour about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame snub and kind of maybe put one last button on the conversation. We've kind of touched on it a few times, but I think this is the first live since we found out that they were out. Who wants to jump in with their hot take first? Scott, are you dying to give us your take on it?
I'll start this off. I was disappointed. But I wasn't angry about it. I wasn't surprised. And like you have, somebody like Joe Cocker, who, you're going back to like the late 60s and just got in. And, Little Feat's not in. So there are bands that have been around a lot longer than PHiSH that I think are well deserving of getting in. And it's their first time on the ballot. And, you could look at like the last 12, 13 years of bands that had won the vote, and all except one that won the vote got in. Dave Matthews Band won in 2020. They didn't get in. They got in 4 years later. I don't think this is the last time we're going to hear of PHiSH being on the ballot. And, it just goes down to like you focus on the stuff you can control, and you try not to let the stuff you can't control get you pissed off.
Sure. I think hopefully one more time and then they're in though, because it's hard. We're obviously like mega fans and like so balls deep in this shit. But like I was thinking about it this morning, this sustained success and like capturing of their fan base that they've had over 40 plus years. It's hard to find bands that have that level of intensity and performance for that long of a period of time. And I couldn't I couldn't come to a conclusion. Is that perspective because I'm like a mega fan and I'm in the middle of it, and a lot of other artists and bands that I'm not aware of, or is this something that is special and unique? But at least from my perspective, it definitely feels snubby, you know.
Well, for the same reasons, Tim, that it feels snubby for you, for me, I don't want the band that I follow around the country and I've spent 30 years of my life like passionate about. I don't want an institution to open their doors to them. Like I want to be like the underdog. I want to be like the I want PHiSH to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame the way that they do everything, by their own way, which was fan first. They won the fan vote. Well, that's the PHiSH way, right? And then I remember Trey saying right before Bid Cypress that PHiSH was going to have the largest rock and roll concert in the world on the Millennium Eve, and nobody cared. Rolling Stone refused to touch it. It wasn't, and now there you are.
Peter Jennings, dude. We got Peter Jennings.
Yeah,
ABC, the PHiSH from Vermont.
The PHiSH from Vermont, Peter Jennings, and also that wasn't Peter Jennings' choice. That was just programming. For 5 minutes, they gave them everything. But going into it, Rolling Stone wouldn't touch it. It was the craziest
cheesecake,
the largest rock and roll concert in the world, and Rolling Stone's like, yeah, they're not for us. The largest rock and roll magazine in the world.
Well, Rolling Stone, what was it, today or yesterday, was a big like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and so that's my point. And so
my
point is that eventually we run the institution, and when we run the institution, then of course PHiSH is going to be a huge part of the institution. In the same way that the Grateful Dead are now embedded in popular culture and references are literally everywhere, and we're starting to see that with PHiSH. We see it on TV now. We see it with news anchors dropping lyrics in and things like that. And so give it a few years. I don't want them. I'm glad that they didn't get in this time. And I also, I'm in no rush for them to be in, but when they're in, it'll be great because I'll be able to take grandkids there.
They're on the Dave Matthews plan 3 times. They've been nominated 3 times, get in the 3rd time. And I had him at 20% chance getting in. I had him as a no. Anyway, the only one that surprised me were the White Stripes. I figured Mariah would get in and not the White Stripes, but it was it did what you expected.
I mean, the Residents aren't in, is Frank Zappa in? I don't know. I mean,
yes.
He is okay. When you look at, if you look at the list of Grammy winners, it will shock you. Bob Marley never won a Grammy. It will shock you, like the people that did not win.
Dylan's first Grammy was for Best Gospel Album for Slow Train.
Yeah.
I don't think we need them to be in the Hall of Fame to like justify or anything like that. And honestly, I personally do not give a fuck. I can't help but feel like it would mean a lot to Trey. And I don't know if he's ever said it explicitly, but you can tell the reverence. And like when they did the Genesis, introduction, and just like the way he's talked about like Adjacent, I think it would be like one of the crowning achievements for him personally. And I think he deserves it. And so like in a weird way, I just want him to have it. I personally, I don't need people to understand my passion for the band or understand what we get. Like it's like you get it or you don't get it, and that's fine. I don't need it to be mainstream. The only reason I care at all is because I think Trey would be over the moon if it happened. I think that would be very special for him.
You're absolutely right, because I mean, to me, monitoring is validation, right? Like when we all come together from all across the country and we see each other and we're in these big fields together, that's all the validation we need. But you're absolutely right. Trey would, Trey deserves to be, and I'm sure that it would be, it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Of course, it's something you can call your dad and say, I told you this would work out.
Yeah, he probably would, right? Like I could totally see him geeking out on the phone, be like, I'm in,
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's get into tour. Kev, why don't you walk us through how you want? I don't know. Have you given a thought how you want to run this?
Well, I mean, why don't we go around and talk, look at each of the cities. Let's talk about Seattle a little, what everybody feels like. I mean, for me, the first night, it was the Back on the Train, the Golden Age. The second night was the Chalk Dust Light, Chalk Dust. But I'll throw it to you to start, T, since you were there. What were your highlights? And then we'll just go around and see what people are thinking. Because I have some interesting stuff as we get further down. What I thought was the best parts that other people might not.
Well, I think a lot of these songs were songs that ended up wanting. I think he wanted to play them later, and I think he wanted to play certain songs at the bowl too. So I don't think he wanted the bowl to be the first place he played some of these songs. So it made sense to play them early and then have that big night of repeats and then not really have to do them again. Cause I feel like I joked about this on the after show, like Evolve. I totally think he wanted to play Evolve at the bowl, but didn't want to play the first time he played Evolve would be the bowl. So like you play in Seattle. So like there were some of those this night and, you know, like 46 Days, which I think the second time we heard it was a little bit better. Like the Piper in this run was better than the shorter one we got later. So it was an interesting mix when you group it together with what happened later at the bowl night one with everything. But I think to your point, Kev, the standout, the Back on the Train was phenomenal. Opening with Sand like they did in Mexico was cool. It kind of like kickstarted the whole thing, I thought. A lot of good re-entries that we talked about. For the first night, it really blew me away how tight they were, how good the jamming was on a lot of the songs. And
the Golden Age was
how good they
sublime.
sounded. That Golden Age was phenomenal.
That was special. That Golden
So,
Age was
yeah.
fucking really nice.
And the What's Going Through Your Mind had a really great jam in it that, to me, I talked about before, had Sounds of the Mondegreen jam inside of it. It had that kind of that we've talked about that kind of as one of the ways they go in jams now. There's the bliss, there's kind of the evil and the darker, and then there's this new sort of, it's not evil and it's not blissy, it's the in between. It's like the storm, and like they just sort of like build it, and it's awesome in that. And we got that in the first night. So I thought it was a great opener, honestly. Like as far as openers go, I thought it was fantastic.
What you got, Scott?
So right out of the gate, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Back on the Train, and it kind of set the tone for this 8 show run. Like you where you'd have songs that aren't typically jammed out that had an extra punch to them. I like the Haleys and Bill Graham. I'd go so far as to say it was the best Roger they've ever done. It was the second longest, and it went tight too, and you just don't see that too often. Gumbo going deep the next night. And so, I mean, that was, there's a short list of, really above and beyond Back on the Trains. Miami comes to mind, 2009. A lot of people were fans of Nassau 03. And this is right up there with it. And having been at the Miami one, I always, I get excited that they're going to jam out Back on the Train. They're going to jam it out, like open the second set, and then it's like losing the football. It's like, all right, didn't happen. The Golden Age in the second set was a big standout, especially with that split open melt jam at the end. Next night, Light Chalk Dust sticks out, and don't sleep on that first set Bathtub Gin, which is around 20 minutes and fantastic version. There was buzz that this is one of the best tour openers that the band's done. You can go back to summer 97, but this is definitely up there for runs that were not island tour. So just a really positive reaction from the fan base, and well deserved.
I agree.
There you go, Benji.
Well, I'm gonna take the opening night and I'm gonna make it an example for the entire 8 show tour. Which, by the way, I'm a big favor of them doing. I love that they did that the previous time when they did the spring. I think 8 shows is their new magic number, and that it allows them to stretch out and also Trey, I think, gets upset when he knows that the end is near, because he would live on the road if he could. And so by keeping it to 8 nights, he has that fear, which means he has the fire, which means that every night he makes every set count. And to that point, I think that with Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle on the first night, we needed a win. I thought Mexico wasn't a huge win, and so we needed a win. And because of that, it was, to put it in hockey terms, which Trey will understand, it was gloves off from the very beginning. The very first notes. And when PHiSH has an intent, it. When they come there because they want to play to the bros and they want to play a big showcase tune, when the 46 days ends after 4 minutes and then they go into moment dance, what they're doing. But with this, when they started off with Sand and then they went into Kill Falls, it wasn't the song choices so much as it was the choices within the song. Trey was playing extra notes, in the composed parts. When he's throwing in extra notes in the composed parts, it means that he has the intent to jam. And so that entire night was Gloves Off PHiSH. And they took risks that you don't often see on night one. Golden Age at one point went into a mirror jam of Split Open and Melt. And it was almost like, so with this whole tour, the minute that they get to the to a place where they can jam, usually there's a little composed part that gets them to that ledge, right? Here they were just like, fuck that ledge. Yeah, we're jumping, we're going for it. And it's like, then all of a sudden, usually it's Trey that leads, and then he looks around and he goes, you guys all here? And then they're all here with them, and then all of a sudden one of the other ones, Paige or Mike, will go, oh, but look over here. And then they all go over there and they say, what's over here? And Mega PHiSH sometimes drops that. Like even at the Baker's Dozen, you had these bliss jams, but it was pretty safe. You knew the passage, and it was just about soloing. And here, that Split Open Mount jam, there also was the light jam that we'll get to from Hollywood Bowl, where like it was almost like the musical equivalent of Trey showing up to a party by writhing around on the floor, like here I am. And so I thought that on that very first night, they had all of that, embedded into it. And so it really, set the intent for the following week. And like I said, they jumped off the improvisational ledge 2 feet before the ledge even appeared. They just jumped and went for it. And at the same time, Trey was playing his old guitar. And I think that really...
What do we know about that? Do we know why that happened? Or is he just like, I'm going back to basics?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, it obviously influenced their set list, because the jams from this tour, Pillow Jets, 8 minutes, Pillow Jets should have been a jam of the tour, but it wasn't. Instead, Oblivion was short. It was all the old songs were the ones that he was, and also there was a return. It was a return to Machine Gun Trey, 100%. He was playing fast. It's almost like that guitar has his muscle memory. He was using his new effects, but his old guitar. And for people like us that can, Scott, I know that if you and I sat in a room and we played this tour, we'd be able to say that Trey was on that guitar, even though he has the modern effects because of the sustain and the contours of it.
The sustains were crazy. Like you could definitely tell, like he was back in that feeling. And I think that was a huge point. Like, I think that helped, to your point, Benjy, of coming out the gate with that win. I think he was like, let me get the old bat off the wall and come out playing that, you know what I mean? And like it worked. There was life, Kevin and I talked about, there's life left in that thing, and why not play it? And I think it elevated everything. Yeah, completely.
It almost felt like he had trouble like with the holding it, like, you know what I mean, like confining it a little bit, right? Like it got a little unwieldy in a beautiful, great way, but like taming it, like I don't know, like listening to it, there were a couple of times where the sustain and it would like shriek out, and then it's like, come on, reel it in, Trey. But I love the energy it brings to his jams too.
Yeah, I really hope that when all is said and done and Trey passes on, that we don't see something like Alligator where he passes that guitar around in the guitar. So I hope that instead it's I hope it's above Four Top booth at our Hard Rock Cafe. And
the Osadoc.
I just don't think it should be played. But yeah, it was great to see that back, and the symbolism of that too. And he still kept the Trey guitar out. But he used it for Pebbles and Marbles, and that's the only thing I remember him using it for.
Is it because it's in a different key? In Camden in 19, when they did Pebbles and Marbles, he switched guitars out just for that song. Is that the thing? It's a key thing?
It is a key thing, but it was curious that he left it on stage. And all I could think of was that maybe it's a security blanket, because, like he knows that one works. And it's been, it's been since 1996 that he used the other one. So, and as we all know, Trey will change his mind in mid-sentence, whether it's musically or equipment-wise. And so, maybe it was a security blanket. Who knows? But it definitely worked. I hope he keeps it.
Totally.
Fair enough. For me, Portland was the show of the tour until the last show. The 46 days, fantastic. The cities, even though it was ripcorded sort of into plasma, seemed pretty flawless. Sigma Oasis put on its big boy pants. And that's just the first set. The second set, the ripcorded Everything's Right with the Boogie One 2001. A lot of fun stuff. And the Sense. The sense was brilliant in the second set, and I was so high on this. But when we get to the end, I was higher on that at the end of the day. What do you think, Tim?
I think that plasma was really fun. I was literally listening to it like an hour before we came on air, and I don't know if you could tell, but the entire time we were in the green room, it was stuck in my head. I was on vacation when it was live, so I listened back to highlights. I admittedly, for full disclosure, didn't get the whole set, but I did listen to most of the first set, and I think the Sigma Oasis was really dope, but the Cities into Plasma was probably the highlight of the set for me.
Yeah,
That's all I got.
Yeah, we're going backwards, Benji, so we're back on you.
I mean, I agree with all that. I think that the only really thing that I have about Portland, that my only unique thought about it was just that to go along with what Scott was saying, I think with a lot of looking at the set list analysis from this tour, maybe because Trey was on the Marmar, you know, and he's focusing on these old tunes that he brought back, or not brought back so much as like the jams weren't in the new tunes as you would have expected them. Sigma Oasis notwithstanding. But because that definitely was the gem of the night probably. But I'm looking at Sense and Subtle Sounds, and to me it was like that Sense and Subtle Sounds, just like the reggae, which Scott, I completely agree with you. It was the best reggae that I've ever heard, and I've heard a lot of them, and it was just, you know, it went type 2, and they found beautiful corners in there. Of course, we obviously will get to Ether Edge. But Sense and Subtle Sounds, I just thought this was a great example of that. It felt, you know, for a tune from the early 2000s, it felt fresh. You know, it was and beautiful for that matter. Fucking beautiful, man.
It was fucking beautiful.
Yeah, it was fucking beautiful. Yeah, it was good. It soared.
I like that the antelope that we got in this one was, like I said, one of those that set up what we got later. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this was sort of the warm up. Let me go up the first time and strike out and see what he's got, and then the next time I'm going to crush it out of here. And we'll talk about that antelope when we get to it. But I think it was nice getting that one that I really believe set up the other one. And I also like the Wave of Hope jam from this show. Like, I thought it had a really cool breakdown jam and sort of some of the bleeps and bloopsies and sort of what Paige did and what the lights were doing and stuff like that. I like that jam as well. I thought was good in it as well.
Scott, I hear so many teases, especially this tour. I felt like I heard Oya Como Va like every night. Like Trey played a few notes of it, and I'm wondering if does he have setups? Does he play things that tell the other band, the rest of the guys, were going into a jam or something by playing a few notes, kind of like the Secret Language was years and years ago?
To my knowledge, no. But I mean, there are definitely a bunch of teases, a couple of Dave's Energy guides, 4 Menteca teases, and obviously you have the Oya Como Va and the Portland Twist. Yeah. For me, just like hearing everyone else talk about this, and everyone's kind of had a little bit different, some similar things and some different things. There was really something for everybody in this tour, an embarrassment of riches of things that were jammed out, and you know, the City's Plasma, one of the best Sigma Oasises they've done. Wave of Hope, and I don't know if this is a popular opinion or not, but it's mine. I kind of like it when I don't know if they screw it up or they transitioned into a song that's in a different key. And I enjoyed the Boogie on Reggae Woman in the higher key, just like the Hershey Weekapog, and that was a meat stick at Jones Beach, I think, in 2009. Just like random stuff like that. Done Wedge a couple of times. I kind of liked hearing that because it's a song that's usually, you know, pretty straightforward unless it's Chula Vista in 99. And so I enjoyed that. But you know, the whole Northwest, all 3 shows were just really top notch. And you go back to 2024. It was the last. 2023. those shows also seem to be like head and shoulders above like other tours, where it's kind of condensed in a more tight tour, more tight band, and really
21
similar
also.
to these shows too.
Odd Years have been doing very well with those.
Odd
climate
years and,
suits-
and short tours.
Odd years and
eight
short
show
tours.
tour. An 8-show tour. Like, you know, that's all business. You don't have, when you're doing 50 tours and you get that 50 nights and you get that mindset every night, you know, you get to experiment, sure, but like it's also you get the doldrums of this is just your daily existence. 8 shows, Trey's not gonna waste a moment of that.
And for as far like selfishly from the perspective of doing nightly recaps, 8 shows is a nice manageable. I mean, I only did 3, but I was
Especially when
already
it's on
very.
West Coast,
I mean,
and it's
Yeah.
like 3 in the morning.
Ask Kev how doing all 8 was.
Undermine would still exist if there was only 8 shows.
Right.
I have no idea how you guys do these after show recaps, especially when it's on the West Coast and you're like Kevin, you're on the East Coast.
No, I was sleeping. I slept from like 4 to 9.
Oh, it's not hard
All right.
for Kev because he's
All right.
He's an insomniac. He's up every night anyway. Try
I'm
catching him at
usually
11
up.
in the morning though. It's impossible. But
Right,
3,
yeah.
3 in the
Naps
morning.
time. When he naps hard, which is
Yeah.
usually right after he dumps a bunch of emails or messages to me and then passes
I'm not
out.
trying to pat myself on the back, but try doing the after show and then wake up with your 1-year-old at 6 in the morning. That's where it
Yeah.
gets.
Yeah.
I was not doing this
painful.
when I had little ones. Not at all. I tell you what, San Francisco, I feel like was so on track. It was going to be this incredible show, and what was up with the Weekapa?
Okay. You love PHiSH and you keep going back to it because every single time you see them, it's different, right? If it was the
That was
same,
a train wreck, man. That was a train.
well,
Hey, man.
I get defensive when people talk about the Wikipod tempo, like there's a proper tempo. There's no proper tempo for any of these songs. You know, that's the whole point. And there's no proper way to play them. That said, of course, you know, come this past Monday, to indirectly quote Jimmy Buffett, I totally forgot that they even played Wikipod in this run. So
Well, that's really what's
you know.
brilliant about the band, though, is with every show being so unique, you don't need to focus on this shit. You take the highlights with you, and the other stuff you can leave behind. You know.
Yeah, like My Soul That Followed the Wikipod. I mean, you know, I'll never listen to that again, but I'll listen to that whole second set a lot. I mean,
And it came on the heels of a rock, like a Buried Alive and an Axela opener, and then they dropped into it. So you're kind of like, sweet, let's do this. And I think that was part of sort of where you were like, oh, the Pog's kind of different. Wah. But then right after that is the My Soul, which ripped, which was awesome and so much fun to get. Like, in that place. I bet that was, you know, so much fun there. So yeah.
And the Haley's and the Roche, like that was a I love that because I've seen that too, where Trey knows something's like fucked up, so then he like puts a little extra sauce in something, and like the next 4 songs rip.
Well, what I also liked about this was like the night before when they did the Antelope, and you thought Antelope was going to close the set, but then it didn't. And then tonight it was the same thing with the Maze. You kind of thought the Maze was going to close the set, and they dropped into that Melt, and you're like, sweet. And then it also made me think that like, oh, great, we got a midnight curfew tonight. Like we're out of that crazy 11:30 have to be done by time. And then it turns out they kind of, I guess, blew past curfew in this show and didn't give a fuck because then the next night they were right back on to being out of there by earlier 11:30.
Yeah, there was no at the Bill Graham. There's no fine for going late, so they're allowed to. They're technically allowed to go. Like if they wanted to play till 2 a.m., they could.
Nice.
But
Okay.
so yeah, I mean there is that. But the a 20-minute Haley's is I kind of feel like there's that, what's the term? The white elephant, is that the term where like you're always every single time they launch into it, it contains the possibility for a 20-minute jam, but 9 out of 10 times you're not gonna get it. Freeze another
White whale,
one.
man.
You know?
White whale.
Yeah, white whale. That's what it is. White whale. Yeah, not white elephant. White whale.
I was like, yeah, Benji, that's it.
Yeah, well, okay, so regardless, we all know that the mammals we're talking about now and they're not. But yeah, it's the every single time that they go into Haley's and free for that matter, there's always that little wave of hope within me that's always like hoping for the 20-minute jam. And with Haley's, I've been lucky to see a few extended ones. and I'm always hoping for that. And so and you can hear it, you can hear it before they're done with the song that they're not going to finish the song. Like you know that intent, and you know that within 4 bars of music, you know that you're going to get another 15 minutes. And so that happened with the Haleys, and it was just, I felt like high-fiving myself for having survived all the other Haleys.
I thought it was interesting with the Haleys that like they went to the jam and then they went back home. You don't hear that too often when you have a deep Haleys, like 19 minutes or whatever, and they bring the lyrics back. Mike brought the lyrics back. I'm like, this is cool. People have been dumping on the Weekapog, and perhaps it's justified, perhaps not. Where people want to hear a certain version and then it comes out a little different. I don't have a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with the Birds of a Feather in Hollywood, which had some really rough spots. When you have a band that isn't playing the same stuff every night, like Springsteen or U2 or the Stones, I'm going to expect it to have a couple of flubs here and there. Like they've had stuff where they've aborted things in the past, or they've had to restart it. And if you're
in Mexico, same thing. The Weekapog in Mexico was just like this one at that weirder tempo.
Variations are great and are the spice that keeps it interesting. The only time flubs I don't think are good or a problem are when they impact their psyche and the rest of the show. Like there are occasions, like I keep going back to the man with that Walls of the Cave, fucked Trey's head up, and you could see it in his face, and other songs were impacted, and the playing was impacted from the flub. When he can shake it off, because it's funny, Scott, you mentioned the Birds. After the really messy start and some of the jank in the beginning, it actually ended up being a phenomenal song. Like it really locked in eventually and turned into it. And so they were able to just, brush it off, and it didn't affect them at all. That's great. You're never going to get perfect PHiSH, right? As long as they can brush it off and keep going, it's great. It's the problem is when it gets into their head, and then
at least with that man show, Walls ended the set, I believe.
Right.
And then when he came
walk
back,
it off and come back on, and
I don't think they were able to shake it off when they came back, though. I feel like that impacted the rest of the night, or at least for a while. I don't know. I have to go back and listen, but that was a rough one.
But I just don't think the Weekapog was a mistake on their part. I don't think they would have said that. It wasn't. I'll have to go back and listen because I haven't listened since they played it live. But the one in Mexico, though, which I did go back and listen to, like that's an intentional tempo, and we have slow maze, we have slow llama, and this wasn't that dramatic. Pop. But you know what? If you go back and you listen to songs that they didn't slow down, but you listen to Poor Heart, you listen to My Sweet One, or even the maze. They're not slow maze, but the normal maze. Go back and listen to one from last year versus one from 1994. There's a huge difference, and it's not just the tempo, but the tempo was faster for all of these songs. And
there's less mistakes now. Actually,
well, even in 2009, that Thanksgiving run in Philadelphia, the Weekapog was slower, but it was cool. Like just because it's slower doesn't mean it's going to be bad. That one was definitely at a slower, funkier pace than other stuff.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I myself am in 2025 remarkably slower than I was in 2002, and so I don't mind it. And as long as they still have great things to say, then take their time saying it. I'm glad. I don't want the same Weekapod from '94. That was great. Those Weekapods were the highlight. Those Mike's grooves were the highlight of those sets.
I'd be okay having those grooves back.
I was gonna say you can say that.
Fine. You can be in your own 194 anymore. I'm fine having 94 come back for the summer. Just give me like 1994 reprise or whatever for the whole summer. We can agree and disagree on that.
I was gonna say that's fair too. I just mean note for note.
Right. A lot of huge jams. The second set, the first night in San Francisco, a lot of huge jams to start it. 3 of them. But I think my favorite thing was the waste into what's the use. I thought that was so beautiful to take the slow song and go into the beautiful slow instrumental. I was like, that's a chef kiss, Trey.
See, That is so interesting to me because once they started playing Waste, they felt like the set was wasted. You know, like I felt like they entered the final quarter. Down with Disease, and they've been doing it. They started off in the beginning of the tour trying to make it so that starting with night one, trying to make it that these late songs, you know, these last songs, they're not just filler, and they're not just jukebox PHiSH, but they're actually getting to jam them like the Ghost. And the Down with Disease was kind of like that, but for me, that second set, the Ruby Waves, was such a narrative. It was an exercise in narrative storytelling and how to tell a story without using any words. You know, and it was such a beautiful jam. I think everybody needs to hear it.
Yeah. It was that one was huge. That the Carini that started the set was great. I think the San Francisco Carinis have become really special ever since Fall 21. They did that artwork. It is a thing. I mean,
Carini for sure.
And that's starting a set with it. I was like, wow, like you encore with it in 21, you open the second set with it here. It's such a fun, different displacement of where it goes. And then the jams are just wow. To start the set like that, I thought was crazy. And so that kind of set up where that Ruby Waves, I feel like, came in and took over. And again, it had sort of that Monday Green jam vibe inside of it that I was talking about before. It very much had sounds of the What's Going Through Your Mind jam from Seattle Night One in it as well. And it was amazing. And I think that's part of the storytelling, Benj, because when I watched that What's Going Through Your Mind that night, like I could picture the scenes at Monday Green, like the things, and this is how that felt too. Listening to it, I was almost like, I don't want to watch the lights right now. I want to picture the cinematic motion in my head that this music is creating. You know what I mean? Like that's how it felt. So yeah, and it's pretty impressive that they can do that with the music they make.
I want to watch the cinematic motion in T's head too. I wish there was a way we could plug an HDMI into them.
Yeah, if we can just plug a visualizer into. But yeah, I mean, all the jams this tour were really master classes in storytelling because they all had, you know, they had sections. The Ruby Waves is just such a perfect example of it because it had actual sections to it that, you know, when they shifted from one to another, and of course this is all, none of it premeditated, all on the spot, you know, and where, I mean, of course, when we talk about PHiSH jamming, we're not talking about soloing or revamping, we're talking about full band, spontaneous composition. And I felt like with Ruby Waves, they immediately had a story to tell. I don't know what that story is because it's beyond words, but the experience of it was definitely, it definitely took you on a journey.
Agreed.
Are we talking both nights of Bill
No,
Graham, or are we on night one?
I jumped ahead to Gumbo by accident.
I was like, I want to talk about Gumbo, but I'll be patient.
I tell you what, that second night, I think
I want to hear what Scott has anything to say about the Ruby Waves.
Oh, okay.
That hat trick, the Carini Nilbands Ruby Waves, that's you can't ask for much better than that. As a fan, just fantastic stuff.
That was what, like an hour? That was like an hour segment, right? Something close to it.
Pretty much.
And then what's the use? I think that was in there, and then an encore of Fluffhead. I mean, that show was so good. Like that was good PHiSH. Great PHiSH.
Great
PHiSH that we'll be listening to years from now, hopefully.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So the second night, the first set's probably my favorite set of the whole tour. I would listen to that set front to back again. The jamming to punch you in the eye, the way they just one of those seamless transitions, a real helping of Gumbo, solid Reba, the well into Bowie. The Bowie had a little extra in the beginning, a little bit of the intro extended. I mean, flawless for me.
I think the best part about the Gumbo was the intention behind it. Because that has become, I hate to say it, not disappointing, but like Benji was talking about how, or somebody was mentioning about how like you go into a song with the expectations of hope, but like 75% of the time you're not going to get it, but there's always that chance. That's kind of Gumbo's the same. I think we're talking about Haley's, but Gumbo's kind of the same way for me for that. It's like, you know, more times than not, it's going to be just a small helping of Gumbo. But when they do it, it's just so special. And you could hear the extra notes and the interplay with Paige and PHiSH. Like right from the beginning, you could tell that was going to be, you know, a special gumbo, and it really delivered.
Straight from the jump, you could tell. And I remember when they did, I remember thinking, like actively thinking, this is probably going to give Boise 99 a run for its money, and it did. And you know, and I was at that one too, and I thought that those are, in my mind, I mean, those are probably my two favorite gumbo. They're definitely my two favorite gumbo. Scott, what's another gumbo that's a standout?
Star Lake.
Yes, of course, Star Lake. Yeah, that one too. I was at all three. That one too.
Oh yeah, that one too.
Yeah. Also, this set, I mean, it's not going to be anyone's highlight from the set. Well, might be mine in an odd way. I'm just so thankful that they brought the well back. Because without, if they didn't play it this tour, that's one of the ones that would have been, did they shelf it? You know, like it was questionable because it never fully made it into rotation. They never fully, it's still unrealized. You know, like they still haven't even begun to explore its full potential. But I was really happy to see.
The one at the Man was solid. I feel like the one at the Man had some heft to it.
It had heft, but it's still, I mean, it's a glimpse of, they're shining a spotlight into a cave, and you know, all that other part of the cave that's dark is there and exists, and someday they will explore it with the well. And maybe the metaphor should have been a well instead of a cave.
Have they been fucking around on purpose with the anticipated set openers and the 2 spots and 3 spots? Because I feel like there've been very purposeful slight shifts where, like, moment that was supposed to be in the, and I know I'm jumping around, but like moment was supposed to, like, we would expect in the 2 spot, move to the 3 spot, punch in the 2, and then like he was saying, Antelope pulled up in the middle,
second song of the set or something. So he was doing it last year too.
I think they're like taking and turning on their head all of the, like, they're getting away from like the Dead thing where it was like you knew every, like, certain songs were always going to be in one spot, and they're like purposefully messing it all up for us.
Isn't that like PHiSH, like a microcosm of PHiSH? Because like,
yes,
you know, music is about prediction, right? And so we like songs where the first time we hear it, we know how it's gonna go. We know when, and then when it doesn't quite go that way. The greatest example in my mind being Blackbird, because they do Blackbird singing the dead of a night supposed to go down, but instead it goes up. And so the very first time you hear that, your brain goes, huh? And with PHiSH, that's like every single time they play, like you think you know a song, and then you think you know sample in a jar, and then at the Baker's Dozen, they play one note, and you just know that it's going off the rails. You know.
I got to come back to something, Benji. Keep going, but remind me about the expectation thing, because you just blew my fucking mind.
That's all this is just saying that like PHiSH has built a career. The whole reason that at least I come back is because I don't know what they're gonna do, and if as soon as it got really when PHiSH gets predictable, and I mean they have patterns, right? Saturday night specials, you know, or Sunday shows being never miss a Sunday show, you know, whatever. But those are just.
That's not even true, though. Statistically, Fridays and Saturdays are just as good, if not better, than Sundays.
That's right. It was just like when people say this is going to be the show of the tour before, like when they announce the tour. It's not like the band is going.
Never miss a Sunday is a way to fuck with your friend who has an early job on Monday and leaves, and you want to
Oklahoma show.
Yeah,
like the first time playing in Oklahoma. That was gonna be the.
But I mean, I think they they want every night to be special, and they give it their best every night. And sometimes though, like a half empty room can affect that versus a sold out Madison Square Garden or whatever, and it can affect it in various ways. There's not just one path. But that's again why we keep coming back, because we're not seeing reruns. We're not just sitting in our apartments watching Seinfeld again and again and again.
And I think Tim, I think it's a cool thing, and I think a great example of that are at the bowl opening second set with a bag and throwing that antelope in the middle of the second set. That was awesome and totally unexpected and not where you'd think they would be. And you're like, wait a minute, are we getting a mid second set antelope? And then that antelope crush. So I mean, I think it's definitely.
And then You Enjoy Myself and the last night, like right as soon as it happened, I just remember thinking like, Did
in
I
the two
mess my
spot.
like? Is this really like this?
No, like a 30-minute yem in the 2 spot or whatever.
Yeah, in the
You're
two
like,
spot.
okay.
I
It's
was like,
awesome
they're going to
'cause
Yemen the second. That's a lot of real estate for a lot of composed real estate for a second, two
Song,
spot
yeah, completely.
song. So I was nervous, and then of course it was one of the highlights of the whole run.
the most brilliant thing about moving a closer or something that's usually at the end of a set or show early is that for some of us who might be partaking in something or not, or have just seen like 100, 200 shows, when you're in the vocal jam or whatever, your body, your mind naturally puts you as like, hey, we're winding down. So then every song that comes after that has that like adrenaline boost, like they're still going. Oh, so it's like, you get that like bonus encore song,
man.
Yeah, the night that they did Yem, everything they did after Yem, the whole night was just like, you had that like, yeah. And, I mean, especially being on the East Coast and it being like 1 a.m, it was also messing with it. But I think there's something about putting the songs in the wrong spot that gives you an extra excitement when you're listening to it.
For sure.
It's the same thing when they
on my
are only
toes.
doing 1 song encores, and suddenly they do a 3 or 4 or 5 song encore. That every single one, you're like, oh, they haven't put down their instruments and they're still on. And I think I told you guys this before, but for the Fare Thee Well rehearsals, when I was talking with Trey about the set list, he had mentioned that that when he writes songs, he writes them maybe not now, but in 2015 when I had this conversation with him, he said that he writes songs with set list position in mind, and that at any given time during PHiSH's career that they need. Or at least after a certain point, once they got the repertoire up, that they need. So he wants 7 active songs for any position. So character 0 is obviously a closer, right? But then you open up a set with character 0, or you put it in the middle, and that goes right back to Tim, what we were talking about, defined expectation. And as soon as that expectation is defined, that lights up parts of your brain. That's like it's like if you're having sets with somebody and something really unexpected happens, but also you're like, this is great,
All right, so Scott, real quick about San Francisco night. We didn't even mention the tweezer.
Scott, take as long as you want. You don't have to rush. Forget what Kev said. You take your time, man.
I already put it out there that the show could go 2 hours, so just let it go. You're good.
Well, I wanted to hear what he had to say because I really like that first set.
Yeah, but you don't have to rush him. Don't be like, real quick, Scott. Lay it down. Be like, take your time. Explain what you got.
I didn't want to
lay
take
it on
away.
us, Scott.
30-minute tweezer.
But it's not memorable, is it?
Kill Kevin.
Wait, which night are we on now?
We're on Bill Graham night too, and Kevin kind of led me into a question where he already had the answer. So, Kevin, tell us how you really feel, man.
It was fun.
Damn,
I don't know. Maybe Tweezer's oversaturated. Maybe the expectation for Tweezer is it is going to be 30 minutes and it's going to be a waste. They don't waste a second of it.
But then maybe the fun of it, Kev, too, and the fish of it was not doing the reprise and fucking with you in that way after giving you that monster tweezer.
I don't expect reprises, I guess. I don't know.
You don't at all, or like I don't the night of, but I expect them to close it.
I mean, they didn't used to do that. That if you got a tweezer,
yeah, I know.
You didn't expect
You're
it.
talking about 30 years ago, but they have for the last 30 fucking years. So that's not really sound logic, my friend.
Well, I did like how the tweet prize kind of, I liked how it jumped cities, because that's kind of a nice recognition that a lot of people in that building were at both shows, and so it's kind of neat that a band can finish a sentence that they started in San Francisco, finish the sentence in Los Angeles, and everybody knows what they're talking about.
Then you have back in 2010 where they opened.
Yeah.
It was 2010. They had like the 2 nights, the double tweezer reprise encore in Hartford, and then SPAC the next night.
That's right.
Didn't they do that at Merriweather once?
There was also a 1990. Am I getting this right? 1990. Fall 1995. I feel like they opened
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Lincoln, Nebraska. They opened with a tweezer reprise.
I was at that show. That was phenomenal. Like it's such a fucking punch in the face when it opens the show. You're like, what the fuck is happening? This is
That's right.
fantastic. And
Because
it's just like
it defies expectations. you know?
Totally,
And so
yeah.
it goes right back to that.
Totally.
Did any of you hear in the tweezer any echoes of Foolish Heart?
Word on Blue Sky.
Stop, I
So
go back and
people
listen.
had talked about Foolish Heart, but also Halfway to the Moon.
Oh, interesting.
And so those 5 notes,
I love that
which
song.
I'm gonna not sing for everyone.
Do you know a timestamp, Scott?
Yeah. Hold on a second here.
Because I did
He's
not
gotten
hear.
several messages about it.
I almost texted you actually, Scott, about it because I had a friend send me a text adamantly saying that, oh my God, they did a Foolish Heart jam tonight, and I was like, were you at the same show I was at? Because I listened attentively.
Yeah.
And
1624.
All right, I'll be
but
right
yeah,
back,
so
guys. I'm gonna
that-
listen to it.
That same
Yeah.
exact spot is where people were also saying Foolish Heart.
Okay,
and so
1624. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that ascending riff, and ended up putting it in as an off-key Halfway to the Moon versus Foolish Heart, but there was definitely some discussion on that.
But it wasn't Shafty.
It's not shafty.
It wasn't Paradise City in like David Bowie. Or Fire in the Mountain.
Paradise City roll with the changes from the Chicago Wedge. Yep.
Yeah.
No, not this time.
Or Fire in the, it wasn't one of Charlie Dirtson's Fire in the Mountain teases in a wiki pod.
PHiSH fans are crackheads. There's no fucking Foolish Heart or there's no cheese there. He's doing a fucking scale, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's what I thought. I mean, I like it. I listen.
goddamn
I
stupid ass
actively-
PHiSH fans.
I was actively
The
engaged with
pacing,
every
though,
note and did
is
not hear
Halfway
that.
to the Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's Scott. I have a newfound respect for you having to deal with all these people. Hey, it might be the acid, but I'm pretty sure I heard LA Woman.
I got 2 words for you, man. Party time.
Right?
Well, always
God
hard.
damn.
So
man.
the other interesting thing from Bill Graham that I would love to hear your takes on is the Pillow Jets, and that there's that, you know, PHiSH does have a pattern of whenever they make a New Year's Eve song, or they do not even a New Year's Eve song, whenever there's just like that you know, the Worcester Runaway Jim, you know, after doing something that's such a centerpiece of an entire tour like that, the next time they play the song is obviously they sometimes just, you know, kind of make a point of not making it special.
Temper
And
expectations.
That's exactly right. And I feel that's exactly right. And I feel like with Pillow Jets, you know, Pillow Jets and What's Going Through Your Mind after New Year's Eve, both of them had brand new possibility baked into them. And I feel like this Pillow Jets was, you know, I don't want to say disappointing because it was in the middle of a set with a 30-minute tweezer, but it wasn't the highlight of the set, let's just say.
Solid
I
cross-side too.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb, and I don't know this because I'm not a phenomenal fucking musician, but I don't know that they have that much control or initial planning on what goes and what doesn't. I think they try to set themselves up in the best possible position, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. Because like I hear you, and I part of me 100% agree with you, Benji. So I'm not trying to be a contrarian. Right, like I recognize the pattern. It's obviously a real pattern, but part of me feels like what about Ruby Waves? That hits 99% of the time. I think they go out there with intentions of everything taking off, and sometimes I think Trey won't chase it to force it though.
Right.
If it's not there, it's not there. Most of the time, sometimes he forces it, but like I don't know. I don't know if they have that much control. I think it's more of a organic, spiritual thing, right? That they ride the dragon, so
The portal.
yeah.
Yeah, or the Back to the Worm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that I don't know, just that with Pillow Jets, I was really hoping for
Something more. Yeah,
I'm
to go.
hoping for more Pillow Jets.
You wanted
songs.
more?
Yeah.
Well, it's like we talk about though,
every night.
when some of
Yeah,
those songs
Bethel
only
Pillow
hit,
Jets
like-
last year. My God.
Yeah.
And some of those longer songs only hit that 8, 7, 8, 9 minutes that Kevin and I always talk about. And
The micro jam.
You're left wanting, and you're like, oh man, but usually this song, like Blaze On, sometimes does that, right? And you're like, oh, but sometimes this song will hit 13 to 15, and then even 18 to 20, and then it goes these places, and then you get a 9 minute, and you're like, oh, it's not quite there. But I agree, like Pillow Jets, and even like Life Saving Gun, what it did in at the bowl show is kind of what you wanted Pillow Jets to do.
Yes, and at the bowl, there's a lot of that where the timings were short, but again, it was so dense with ideas that at the time, a lot
Made
of
up
those.
for.
It's looking when you look back and you look down and you see the time and you see how long it was that you're like, oh, that was only 8 minutes because it felt like it could have been 15.
Right.
And one hallmark from this whole tour, from the 20-minute jams, and let's say anything that over like arbitrarily 15 minutes. I feel that there were a number of cases where you could clearly hear as they're exploring, they were, I don't want to use the word in danger of, but there was a chance that they were going to go into another song. There's a chance that they were moving towards a chord change or just a vibe change where you felt that you could easily anticipate the ripcord. And amazingly, they didn't really do that. They veered towards there, and every time you thought they were going into something, instead they were like, actually, guys, let's hang out here for a minute.
Feel it out
Let's
a little
see-
bit longer.
Let's see what else there is to see here. And
Yeah.
and that's how that's grade A fish right there. So
Great.
Yeah, I've noticed that over the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, there's been a noticeable avoidance of ripcording, and it doesn't always work. There are times where they'll sit in a song a little too long, and you're like, okay, that didn't really go anywhere. But I would rather have that than neuter, everything instantly that doesn't, jump and deliver it right away.
There
LA?
we are.
LA,
Yeah.
LA.
LA,
Scott, you started off
Woman
on LA.
Sunday afternoon.
LA.
Yes.
Woman
Start us off
Sunday
on
afternoon.
LA, Scott.
The thing that stands out to me for LA more than anything else is that Ether Edge. Longest, it dominated the weekend for me. I thought Friday was not as strong as other nights on the tour. And Sunday with the Yemen twist and the Fuego was a solid finish, but the Ether Edge was my highlight for sure.
Right, yeah,
I
that first
hate
night
that.
the first night we got the first What's Going Through Your Mind that was in single digits. That one had been hitting 1,000% out of the box. This one they ripcorded into Carini.
And in an interesting place too, right? Open the set with it.
I'm really I think it's really interesting you say that, Scott, because I loved Friday night, and I thought that they were full of ideas, and even that Norwegian Wood. I mean, so the Beatles played, and I might be wrong about this because I'm not a Beatles expert, but I think if I remember correctly, that Norwegian Wood actually was from a 1965 album, and they
Rubber Soul,
and they famously played the Hollywood Bowl in 1965, the same year that Norwegian Wood came out. So to hear Trey do that and some of the Jimmy Page lits that he was doing throughout the all 3 nights, he definitely had the history of the Hollywood Bowl in mind. But I just thought that when they came right out the gate, I thought that, maybe not with the 46 days, it took them a little while, but when they got into the Chop Dust Torture, Chop Dust from the Bowl is a great example of them being like, you know what, we are going to jam. We're not going to waste any time. We're not going to, the whole point of the song is not to play the song. We want to jam. The stash was very inventive. It always is on some level, and same with Wolfman's Brother. But then the Light and the Mercury, I thought were both phenomenal. And at Light, they did something towards the end that was type 2 that you see more in the 90s when they fucked with it's not just, they're not just keeping the train rolling at a certain clip. Instead, the entire train goes off the rails, and the whole band, it can get clunky rhythmically, it can get, very weird, and it did that, and it took a lot of risk, and I loved that. And I did not like the second night at the Hollywood Bowl, except that Ether Edge, which the second they went into it, the two friends that I was with, both kind of rolled their eyes, and I could feel them rolling their eyes, and I flipped them off, and I said, "Watch, this is going to be the highlight." And
Yeah, because Trey does that. He jams the fuck out of his worst songs. It's like Soul Planet, and then you end up with a 20-minute like mind melter. Ether Edge, the beginning of Ether Edge is not a good song. I don't care how good they jam it. The composed part of that song is predictable and shitty, and I don't care.
Them's the fighting words. I love it. It's lyrically, it's a song about death, obviously, and about Ether Edge and about going to that spiritual place where your spirit continues, and whatever, however you want to view it, and whatever the past is gone, and whatever happens now, I don't mind, and so to me it has an immediate ethereal quality of flight, and I thought that the Sphere was when that really came into sharp focus. And then there's the Ether Edge from Dips that just absolutely soared, and to me that's an example of like Ether Edge, you feel like it doesn't feel exciting like a jam. It feels like it's going to be a ballad, and then all of a sudden it's like the musical equivalent of jumping off a cliff and realizing that you actually have wings on.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, and I think you guys hate like that and Evolve, and I like both those songs. They're just very, I don't know, they're very PHiSH to me. They just remind me of PHiSH, so like I always like them and think, I don't know, I don't have a problem with them. And so to see that Ether Edge do what it did was phenomenal. Like I don't know how. See, night one to me was the weakest of the three nights, just because I had seen so many. Seen some of those songs in Seattle. Like I did love getting the Rift. I love that song. It's fun as hell. Like regardless of again how good or bad they play it, like it was a pretty decent one still. But it was great getting a Chalk Dust. That Chalk Dust ripped shit. Like it was fantastic. Like for what it did, it was great. Yeah, the stash was good. The hood, that hood to close the set was gorgeous. I mean, it was a beautiful hood. Like it was such a greatest hit set. Like I really loved how much we got out of that. Like that Carini Into the Light was fantastic. The Mercury was awesome. The Piper, it was so short. And Kevin, we bitched about it on the after show, but what it did in that time was. It had such potential.
I missed it.
It was ripping. I know. And it was ripping. And then that Ghost, geez, we need to change that shirt so it just says, like we said, Tim, like play a decent Piper. Like, just give me a proper Piper.
Build Piper, please.
Play proper Piper. And then that ghost was fantastic, I thought. And so, I mean, overall, if you told me I was going to get like two Pipers, two Ghosts in 3 shows that I saw, I'd be like, sweet. It's like 90s all over again. Give me all, like, that's fantastic. So I loved that. I thought night 2, honestly, was my favorite night because I got my Divided Sky. I thought that
was a solid hour through the Antelope. A solid hour.
That was the whole thing. It opened the bag, the life-saving gun, the howling was fun as hell. That Oblivion jam was great. And then the drop in an Antelope was like the holy shit moment. And probably, other than the Yem, my favorite moment of the entire weekend. Because that Antelope smoked. Like it
Even
was.
the Beneath the Sea of Stars was special. I felt like they
It
got
was
into
good.
this Floydy
It is
spacey
special.
thing afterwards.
It
The only
was
part of that set I wasn't like over the moon about was Everything's Right, which was fine. I just don't love it as a set closer. Like it was an okay, Everything's Right, but
And then
everything
the taste,
else I loved about that
the return of About to Run. We've been wondering where it was, and it was awesome in the encore spot. Like it was, I don't know. Saturday night was such a good show for me. Like I love, and that coil to end that first set. Like first set was so opening with the gym, which I like. It was just such like a personal love.
Coil is such a beautiful piece of theater for PHiSH. And to do that at the bowl and let Page have his moment, that's
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be special for Page to be on stage by himself at the Hollywood Bowl playing, Elton McConnell.
Yeah.
I want to circle back for a second regarding my Friday comments. While I would probably put the other 7 shows above that, it wasn't a bad show.
Totally.
And just, I think with PHiSH, a lot of it's personal preference. Like, what are you looking for when you go into it? Song selection, song length, song quality. So I mean, it's there are certain songs that people in this group like that I was like, yeah, I'd kind of groan if I heard the songs. I'm not going to spill any beans on that, but
we will give you shit about it if you do.
That's how I felt about Night 2, Scott. So yeah, I mean, it's personal preference.
Piper is a perfect example of where you look at the length of the song and it doesn't tell nearly the whole story, because while you don't have that slow build Piper anymore, you have a fast jam Piper. So 2-3 minutes out of the gate, you're already deep into like a type 2 jam. And then it could go to like 12, 13 minutes. And you're like, all right, well, it's not a super long Piper, but they packed so much into it.
Yeah. What's interesting about that Friday, from my perspective, is for the first time in years, I took a break from PHiSH and from everything, like the channel and social media and everything. And I didn't listen to any of the shows leading up to LA. And I hadn't listened to any recordings of PHiSH for months. So if I listened that Friday night last year, where I was pretty much a daily user of PHiSH, I probably wouldn't have been super high on it. But going into the show, I came in and Kev was like, oh, that was okay. It wasn't great during our halftime break. And I was like, that was amazing. Like, it filled my soul and it scratched all the itches. And it was like
I think that says so much about the band and this run in itself, is that show to me was probably a bottom 2 show. Like that and Seattle Night 2 are the bottom of my list of shows.
Right, but when you're starved for it and you're thirsty,
right, exactly.
It's like, it's still amazing.
I mean, to me, it's so interesting too. And that's, of course, why this show works, because it's, you put 5 people that know their PHiSH in a room, and they'll have 8 opinions about.
I was gonna say my opinion's changed 20 times tonight.
I mean, Tim, as much as I love your shirt, my favorite shirt, my favorite lot shirt actually is a Piper shirt that says "Piper into Piper," and and we didn't get that with this Piper. I don't know. I thought
that's going to be on wook+.com tomorrow. Put a
Piper
into Piper shirt.
Piper into Piper, because you're like, what are they going into? Oh yeah,
what does that say, Scott?
But I I mean, and again, also with attendance bias, and there's also an LSD bias, I suppose. Because I on Friday at the Bowl, I was with some friends that I never get to see, that I care very deeply about. And definitely took a head full and had that experience. And then end of the night, talking to my girl on FaceTime for hours back at the hotel. So it was like a perfect night for me. And and I think that kind of that plays into it. Whereas Saturday night felt like Saturday night in Hollywood. Which I almost have like a preconceived bias against. Of course, I had the time of my life, so it was great. And the Ether
I've never been in Hollywood on a Saturday night.
Yeah. Well, it's not as glamorous as Marilyn Monroe makes it sound.
As Motley Crue would have you believe?
No, absolutely. It's just as glamorous as Motley Crue would have you believe. Of course it is. A few miles down on the Sunset Strip, but in the meantime, Motley Crue is like being badasses down at the whiskey. PHiSH is trying to make us soar into some heavenly dimension with Ether Edge.
Right. Hey Dave, what's the drinking game you guys are playing? We've had so many different drinking games on the channel, but I'm disconnected now. I don't know what the call outs are you guys are doing in chat. I don't know. I think it has to do with Kev. Every time Kev says something, they all say drink.
I have no idea.
Are they playing a drinking game to this?
Yeah, I want to play. That's why I'm asking. I was like, let me in on this.
I think the problem,
every time Michael Franti says, "How you feeling?"
Or Buckwheat Zydeco used to say, "Are you ready?" You're like, "Yeah, dude, it's the encore. We've been ready for the past hour."
I want in on the Kev drinking game. Whatever it is, I want in on it.
What you got, Scott? There,
water.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he told us what he thought about LA.
All right. Well, the Timber. I'll give the Timber the last night, and I think the second Yem Jam into Twist.
Oh, you're going on to night 3?
Yeah. Well, you just said.
I'd let off with LA Kev. So.
Yes. Yeah.
He's doing that thing where half of it's in his head and he forgets to tell us what he's doing. All right,
After
so you
10
want to
o'clock,
wrap it up
everything's
with the
gonna
last
stop.
night? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah,
So
well, I
tell us
was
what you
okay.
thought of
say-
Friday and Saturday, Tim.
What?
What'd you think of Friday and Saturday?
just
Well, I
told us
talked
about
about
a Friday.
Friday. I was super special for me. But admittedly, it's not my personal favorite type of show, right? Like I acknowledge that was very much my personal situation. Saturday though, I thought was phenomenal. The life-saving gun into the howling is my favorite mix of jamming and dance party. And like I love dance party fish and I love like type 2 space cadet fish, but when they go like all the way out there while fish is still putting 4 on the floor and getting everybody dancing, that's my favorite type of fish. And I think that's exactly what the beginning of the second set was. And then the Beneath the Sea of Stars, I mean obviously the Antelope, but like the Beneath the Sea of Stars is one of those moments where it started and I like to myself was like and very quickly was like, oh wait, no, yeah, exactly, I want this. So big fan of both shows. I think the band is fantastic. I have nothing negative to say about them. They should have been in the fucking Hall of Fame. But
They should have been. One more thing. What do you guys think? People have been poo-pooing on the Fuego Encore. I thought it was really cool.
So, okay.
Loved it after
It's kind of like it's kind of like Sunday Overall for me. Like Sunday Overall, like where at least for me, I did 5 shows in person from starting at SF. So it's the last night of a 5-night, 6-day run.
Plus a Taper's Choice show thrown in there.
Yeah, and a Taper's Choice show thrown in, and a flight, so no days off. Flight travel, all of that. So I was, my energy levels were low, but also I was expecting it to be a punctuation mark, and I kind of feel like it was. I mean, set list wise, it doesn't excite me that much, and in fact, I did something I very rarely do, which is I don't think that I've ever done, and that's that during most events unplanned, I ran to the merch booth.
That was pretty flubby, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I don't think that one worked out that well.
I stayed around for the end of joy because they want me to be happy, and I want that for all of you. So I just, but then I took off, I ran, and then for set 2, that Yem, as soon as it appeared in the 2 spot, I think we all kind of probably guessed that they're gonna do the vocal jam and then they're gonna bring back the instrumental jam, and
the second Yem jam,
the second Yem jam, and that's gonna probably gonna be the meat of the set. And then it was, of course, Life Boy is always going to be just a beautiful moment at a show. 2001 will always, kick in your drums and get you to dance. But then for Fuego, I was noticing so a lot of my, the people in my section and the garden boxes and friends of mine were just leaving left and right. And I just thought, I looked at the clock and I saw that there's another half hour to go. And so I figured it'd either be a quick Fuego followed by 2 songs or else they're going to jam it. And I thought it was, one of the better Fuegos that I had heard.
It was fucking incredible. I do not understand the hate.
Pieces in there. It was just amazing.
Fish fans are the worst sometimes. And if I didn't have Kev to tell me what's going on social media, I would never have believed that people could possibly fucking complain about a 22-minute Fuego to end the run. It was fantastic.
It was fantastic.
Everything.
It was fantastic. It had a tease. What was it? It was like
Mr. Completely.
Mr. Completely, thank you. It had the Mr. Completely jam in there, and I love how Fish did that, starting with day 1 from this tour with the Split Open and Melt jam that they did in Seattle. It seemed like they did that a few times where they were echoing their own songs throughout, and so Mr. Completely was definitely more of a tease but it was cool. I mean, I thought that Fuego was fucking great. I mean, I wasn't sold on it as the choice in the beginning. I probably audibly sighed, and by the end of it, sign me up, put me in.
I thought the same exact thing though, Benji. Like 3 songs, I was like, we have a half hour. Yeah. Like, this is gonna be a sweet encore, like fantastic. And then when Fuego started, you're like, okay, it's gonna be one of those like quick Fuegos that gets into something else and then rocks us. And then it kept going, and you're like, I don't think we're gonna get anything else. And then it just kind of kept going. You're like, all right, this is pretty sweet, you know what? But then it ended. And it ended early, so then at the end, I think my complaint anyway was like they always cram something short in any way to start an encore. Where was that this time to give us that double end at 29?
You had a 20-minute song.
Like, give me my Sleeping
You can't
Monkey.
add nice things.
That's right. I got gypped one song, so they owe me like one song. Damn it! But that, I think
That's not the Fuego's fault. I can understand you'd be disappointed about like not getting another song, but I don't understand people complaining about the Fuego.
No,
The Fuego
I
was
can't understand
great.
complaining about that Fuego. That Fuego was amazing, and that was a hell of a way to end it. To just take that and actually
like
do.
I
mine.
that.
think people don't like it as an encore. People don't
Well,
like it as an
Yeah,
encore.
but
I don't
you know
like what
what?
people
I mean,
like.
so but fuck all those people because
Yeah,
here's
fuck
what
'em.
here's the thing is that I want as an encore, if I can have a 20+ minute encore, I'll take it. And if I know that it's one song instead of if it's 3 songs in 20 minutes or a half hour, great. They're gonna do Sleeping Monkey, Rocky Top, and
Right.
preceded by one
Zero
and
or
out.
something.
Yeah.
Cavern or something, some bullshit. And it's like no. Instead, if you had told me from the start when they walked on stage that the Fuego was gonna be as long as it was, it wouldn't have taken me a few minutes to warm up to it. I would have
like,
had
sweet, here we go.
put my seatbelt
I
in, my
think it was
helmet
a-
on,
You
and
saw
then,
the taste of Mondegreen in your mouth. You were like,
Yeah.
not again.
yeah,
I
but
think
like-
it was a perfect
but-
wrap up though to this run in that it was that 21 minutes and it kind of encapsulated the jams that we got throughout these 8 shows. And I thought that made a lot of sense in like closing the book on it. So,
and
Here's
and
one
they
piece for
closed
you.
it without making a statement. Instead, because sometimes they make a loving cup, good times, bad times. It's a nice little cover and then maybe an exclamation mark on it or something like that. And instead, no, they said, you know what, we're PHiSH, we're gonna fucking jam. And
I'd
rip
take
your
a
face
22-minute Fuego over Good Times, Bad Times after a Sleeping
Yeah.
Monkey any day.
off.
Outside of an occasional yem that has shown in an encore, this is the first real 20-minute jam in an encore going back to Coventry.
Ooh.
Right, Scott,
Really?
what is up? Did you skeet something the other day about there were more
Skeet,
20
Did I
minutes?
what?
Skeet.
Yeah, and I heard you.
Oh, we're skating here now?
Did something about the fact that they played more 20-minute jams on 4.0 than they did before COVID? Was that you?
I didn't. My post was that they're averaging about 1 20-minute jam a night.
Okay.
Which is
That's what it
they
was,
haven't had a frequency that high, period.
Ever.
I think 03 was like 80% of the time, 80% of the shows had it.
We're living in a
04 was
great
like
time.
70,
Yeah.
yeah. Just monumental year so far.
That was my take from this tour. Again, Mexico, I is a whole different story. But my take
Was
from
Mexico
this
bad? I thought it. I
Well-
can't remember, but I thought it was all right.
Well, my focusing on the spring tour, my takeaway from it after 8 shows was that not only did they
Benji has
not
dodged the question.
drop
Yeah,
any,
it's
yeah. Well, it wasn't that. It was looking at the current tour and saying that I was using that as to juxtapose. But I suppose that I just thought that every single night there was at least one monster jam, and most of those, or at least some of them, were in the unexpected places. And or even like the lesser expected, like Sigma Oasis. It's not surprising that they went that long with it, but it was nice. Back on the train, in the light jams, just every single night though, there was something. There was meat in every single show.
But no meat, ironically, which would have been great.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
the meat stick, and it was beef
No
week.
meat, no meat stick.
It was beef
Can
week.
I?
It
We're
was
kind of
vegan
in this
fish.
really nice place on this recap where it would be a natural closing place. We've been talking about the encore of the last night. I'm gonna do like the most unprofessional, shitty thing and go back to the first set, but I missed the opportunity. I just want to say that Timber on the first set of Sunday night was fucking spectacular, and
Great stuff.
one of my
It
personal
was
highlights.
spectacular.
It was
spectacular.
It was fantastic. It was wonderful.
Dude, that opening coming out the landlady cavern llama and even that even into that lizards was a fantastic run of songs. Like it was such a great.
Fantastic.
It was so much fun. It was such pure Sunday, like blissfully
But
awesome.
none of those were as good as the Timber, though. Don't
then- well,
don't
that's what I
undercut
mean.
my Timber.
Then you get this Hey Stranger, and then you get this fantastic fucking timber, like that just was what you want. And it's, I mean, that thing was totally special. I love it.
Fishman was on fire, man. He
Yeah.
was laying it down.
The
Completely.
activist, the PHiSH activist in me wants to start a petition, or at least throw it out to the universe that I said this 2 years ago, and I'll say it again and mean it. Hollywood Bowl needs to be a PHiSH tradition of 3 nights every, one weekend every year in the spring, April, preferably at the same time as Coachella to get rid of a few of the bros. I mean, 2 years ago was the same weekend as Coachella, and there was less chomping in the audience than I've ever heard at an LA, Southern California PHiSH show. And even at Hollywood Bowl, at least in my section, there was no chomping. Everybody was into it, and it was seamless. There's something about the experience of the Hollywood Bowl that is just what I love about it is the 100s. It's all every 4 seats is a little box. So I love that because you get to have like
your own little private dance area.
That's exactly right. And so that's the best. It's also great that it's just, you're in Hollywood and there's a romance to that I just love. As you're walking up to the bowl and the history that's there, it's Did
you see the Hollywood sign from like when you're sitting up in the up top? It's like it's so crazy. It's such
I went all the way up there.
Get out there someday.
I went all the way up there just to take a photo to send that to someone, and it's just you could frame it like it's Hollywood. You have the sign up there. You have a few miles away was where Neil Young was doing his little benefit show.
And there's your Neil Young minute.
Yeah, he had an autism benefit show, within view of Hollywood Bowl, just like he did last time 2 years ago. I wonder if they planned it that way, but then there's something about seeing PHiSH at Hollywood Bowl that to me, and granted, it doesn't sell out. It's at capacity, so it looks like it's a sellout. And I remember last time I mentioned to Jason Colton because I put a tweet about it or a skeet about it, about how this should be a tradition, and it would grow. It would grow because everybody that went there had such a fantastic time. If it was 1 weekend every year, it would grow like Ditz did. That's a funny sentence to say, but yeah, it would grow like Ditz. And so and now that we don't have Ditz, and now that we have Boulder instead, I would love to see the Hollywood Bowl become a spring PHiSH tradition in such a way that I'm willing to start a petition about it.
I don't know, Benji. I like you, but if we're gonna start a new weekend tradition, I don't know if LA is my top show.
They don't want those 3 a.m. shows. I will say that there was a fantastic number of East Coast people that made the trip out here this year. Harley and Danielle.
Yeah. Those are listening people, because the one person you forget the list is gonna be.
I know, but those are the people I can think and Stane was out here, and Ant-Man was out here.
Talk about amateur mistakes.
They were all.
I know.
Really
I've
cool
done that
to see.
before.
And the really cool thing was a lot of them showed up to the Taper's Choice show that night too, which made it really cool. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to the dude I met from Sweden, Andres, at the Taper's Choice show. He did the San Francisco shows and then did Taper's Choice because of us, and talked to me for a few minutes and actually handed me these fantastic dead stickers.
He comes up to me at shows and always is so polite and reintroduces himself, and I'm always so thankful. He's such a great dude. And
so cool.
He wins the award for the most awards traveled for PHiSH. And yet I see him. It was I remember the first time I saw him, and the first time we met at Dips, and when he said how far he had flown for it, I thought, well, you win the award, but I probably won't see you at another show anytime soon.
Totally.
I keep on running into him.
I told him, I was like, why don't you go to shows in New York? He's like, oh, I do. I was like, oh, okay. And then you just decided to fly to SF and he's like, yeah, California. He's like, I always wanted to see it and whatever. And he's like, it's very hard in Sweden. Nobody, jam music doesn't really exist. And he's like, nobody really gets it. And he's like, and then when I try to explain it, I just make it worse. And I was like, who hasn't been in that position? I totally get it, man.
I'm so glad that Kaspat Vats isn't purely a Sweden and Norwegian band, because I don't think I'd be flying there. I'd be live streaming.
Right? See, what you just described is the tagline of Wook+. We try to describe it, but we only make it worse.
But super cool guy. And it was a meeting him, and actually so we talked at the Taper's Choice show, and then randomly Friday night at the Bowl I was walking out next to him, and he's like, oh hey, I was like, oh hey, and then we were able to trade stickers and stuff. It was really cool.
I love that.
He's a shout out to him, because I always appreciate when he comes up to me. It shows, because he's great.
Yeah, very cool. And see, we are international. It's not just Canada.
I've never traded stickers with anyone. If this is your first time watching, make sure you like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member.
Kev,
It's
you
a
were
good
the one
deal.
who got the stickers made for us.
What?
Kev's so
You're the
full
one-
of shit. I've seen him walk around with stickers.
Totally, you're the one who made the stickers. What are you talking
But I
about?
don't trade them. I just give them out, and I'm like, "Go stick this in the
Yeah,
spot."
well, they
right.
give
As
you
soon as you-
stickers, and
as soon
another
as you
way to
whip
say
yours
that
out-
is you exchange or trade stickers.
Right. and as
Somebody
soon
hands
as
you a sticker, you
come
hand
on.
them stickers. You're trading stickers.
As soon as
We
you whip
love
yours
all
out,
of
they whip
you.
theirs out. So you're
This was
Benjy,
the
trading.
best one.
Thank you, Scott.
Train-
Thank you.
Oh,
We love you.
your
I'm gonna
mama is
get this
down in
out.
front.
Wait,
Oh, thanks, Kev.
What are you thinking for stickers?
Huh? No, I was just. He said something about trading stickers. I said I
Yeah,
never
no, I'm
traded.
saying what's the things for stickers that say we love you? No, I mean it's better to trade drugs than stickers.
Your
Oh,
mama
yeah.
is down in front.
No, I'm
Um,
saying that I love you because I'm saying goodbye, and I'm gonna
Oh
take
well,
us out.
I love you too.
Yeah.
It's great. Thank you for having
Well, you didn't
me
let me.
back on the
You
show.
didn't let me finish my spiel.
Oh, go
do
ahead.
your fucking
Spiel.
spiel.
If you're watching the first time, make
I'm sorry. Dude, I'm
Look,
back.
Kev comes back with all the jokes. See that?
Do your spiel. Let us know in the comments what you thought about the tour and about Kev's spiel. Somebody tell me what the fucking
Hi,
drinking
guys.
game is.
Thanks, Scott.
Hey, Scott, I love you too, by the way. Love you, Kev.